All right. So, the purpose of chanting is try to put the mind in the background. Normally, the mind rules our life. We don't realize it, but the mind is not us. We are not our bodies, and we are not our minds either. Our minds have a mind of their own. So sometimes you'll see that if you try to stop thinking about something, your mind won't stop thinking about it. Now, if you were the mind, what would be the question of you trying to do something in your mind and wouldn't do it if you were identical with the mind? But the fact is that the mind is actually what we call the reactive or the conditioned mind. We have our minds that have been conditioned by ourselves, by our family, by our past, by our culture, by our past lives. Our minds have been conditioned in a certain way. That's why people are so very different, because everybody has a different admixture of all these different influences from the past, not only this lifetime but previous lifetimes. And these impressions are still there, and technically in Sanskrit they're called samskaras. So whenever something very emotionally powerful happens to us, it gets burned into our mind. We may forget the instance or the details, but we remember the impact that it had on us. So by chanting, we are washing away this stuff, because most of it's garbage, some flavor or some stripe of garbage. So we focus on these things. But when we chant Hare Krishna, we get a chance to try to recognize that right now I'm pulling away from thinking about the past, thinking about the future, trying to work something out, trying to plan some speech to somebody or whatever it is, and we're trying to be in the now, in the hearing of the sound vibration. And after a while, we begin to realize that much of what the mind is telling us is just straight up crazy stuff. And we'd be better off ignoring it. And we begin to realize how long and how seriously we take the mind when actually it's just kind of puking up stuff from the past. It's not necessarily us, not necessarily something that will be good for us, not necessarily something that needs to be done, but the mind will sometimes scream it in our ear over and over again. So the chanting is to focus on the Supreme Lord, or Krishna, from whom everything comes and to whom everything returns. So we are trying to focus on the mind, and rather on the sound of Krishna's name, and to try to put the mind behind us. And anyone who tries to do this, anyone who ever tries to do this, will recognize how very, very difficult it is. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, or actually Arjuna says, that chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavajrinham tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. So in chapter 6, Krishna explains about the mind. In chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, we find out that the mind is the best friend or the worst enemy. And we decide whether it's going to be our best friend or our worst enemy. And if we control it, it will become our best friend. If we do not control it, it'll become our worst enemy. Because we have it with us 24/7. We can never get rid of our mind. So that's why Krishna explains the mind to Arjuna. He explains the idea of meditation and yoga in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And then after the explanation, Arjuna, his net response is chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayori vasuduskaram. That, my dear Krishna, the mind is like a raging wind and seems to be uncontrollable. So how can I control this mind? This process of controlling the mind through yoga you have described to me is too hard, because the mind is like the raging wind. So, the mind, the wind is hard to get a grasp on because it has no substance in the usual sense. However, it is very powerful. If you're in a hurricane or a tornado, you can easily be killed, even though it's just wind, it's just air, but it's very powerful. So the mind is like that. Sometimes the mind gets really stewed up like a hurricane. But through working at trying to control the mind through chanting, it becomes easier. And we begin to realize that our whole life will become easier. So as one of my mantras that I say a lot when I give classes is that focus your mind, focus your life, focus your life, focus your mind. So if you try to focus your life, you will automatically focus your mind. If you try to focus your mind, you will automatically focus your life. Both of them work off one another. That if we try to focus our mind, we will be able to focus our lives. And we do that by trying to think about Krishna, particularly this mantra that we were just singing, the Hare Krishna mantra. It's not a random mantra. It's not just one mantra of a million mantras, that in this age of Kali Yuga, which we are living, we find that this mantra is special. It has the ability to deliver the mind more than any other mantra, more than any other spiritual practice. It has the ability to deliver the mind. And actually, when I was looking at this verse today, which is, I think, in 6th chapter, it's somewhere toward the back end of the 6th chapter, Chanchalam Himana Krishna. But in that purport, when Prabhupada is explaining about Krishna's, or Arjuna's question to Krishna, that this process you've described to me seems unendurable and unbearable, because the mind is like the raging wind. How will I ever control it? So Krishna will respond to that in the next few verses, and he says, it is very difficult to control the mind. Krishna agrees, but he says, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. So that's the key, that we have to do it over and over again and practice. And if we continue to practice, we will get better and better at controlling the mind. And an interesting thing that I thought, which actually fits right in, was the fact that we're here in the yoga studio next to the horses, is there's an analogy that comes from the Svetasvatara Upanishad. And it's the analogy of the chariot. And a chariot, in battles in India in ancient times, they had foot soldiers, which were considered kind of the lowest rank. Then you had people who were warriors on chariots. They didn't really have people who rode individual horses so much. They had chariot warriors. They had elephant warriors. Elephants were the first tanks, so that people would get on the back of an elephant, and everyone would be terrified, because not only could you be killed by the person on the elephant, but the elephant itself could kill you because it's big, it could step on you or whatever. So you had elephant warriors, you had chariot warriors, and then you had regular foot soldiers. And so a chariot, usually they had oftentimes 5 horses. Now, the analogy is that the body is like the chariot. So we're riding in something. We are not the body, but we're riding in it. It's something that's external to us, but we identify with it usually, but falsely so. So the body is the chariot. And then when you have a chariot, you have to control the horses, and they're controlled with reins, just like in the Old West. You have these leather straps, and they go into the mouth of the horses. And so the chariot driver, usually you had a warrior who did not drive the chariot. You can't drive and fight at the same time in a chariot. So you had a partha, or a driver, and you had the actual warrior. So the person who is the warrior is considered to be the intelligence. I mean, who is a chariot driver is considered to be the intelligence. And the senses, mind is the reins of the horses. Now, what are the horses in this particular analogy? What do they represent? Do you have any idea? There are 5 horses. So what do we have 5 of? What's that?
The 5 senses.
The 5 senses, right. So this is how life has been described in the Svetasvatara Upanishad in an analogy that we're in a body and we are being dragged or pulled on a chariot. We are not the chariot. The actual soul itself is considered the passenger. He's not actually the driver. He's not the mind. He's not the senses. He's not the body. He's not any of those things. He's the passenger. And the intelligence is the driver. And the intelligence drives the horses via the reins, and the reins are considered the mind. So the mind is the controlling element of the senses. It directs where the senses will go and where they won't go. You can imagine what it would be like in a chariot if the driver didn't direct the reins and the horses were the ones that were deciding where where you go, because there's 5 of them and they may not even decide on the same direction. They could decide each one of them could decide in a different direction. And so the reins need to direct all of them in the same direction. And it's the driver that knows where you should be going, and it's the driver that tells the horses which way to go. So a properly directed mind, and in this analogy, a mind that is actually a best friend is one where the intelligence directs the reins, which are the mind, and the mind directs the senses, which are the horses. It says, okay, go here, don't go there, go this way, not that way. That's the proper setup. But actually in our world, we see for most people it's the other way around. The senses decide where we want to go, and as a result, the reins just feed back to the driver, and the driver is not really very, is not making any effort to control the mind. So the driver is passive. And as a result, what can we say about the direction of the whole chariot? What's that?
Right, there is no direction.
Yeah, we could be going anywhere. We could be going off a cliff. We could be going in circles. We could be going into the middle of a desert where everyone will die. The horses, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Everybody will die there. So it should be the other way around. And so this is actually what life is about. We're learning how to focus the mind, and in this way, we will focus our lives. And so if we can focus the mind by chanting, then gradually we will lose the taste for things which are actually not good for us and are detrimental. And in this way, the way that the chariot's supposed to work, the chariot's supposed to have the intelligence directing the mind and the mind directing the senses. And the senses are the horses. So in this way, the intelligence is like the GPS. So the intelligence is supposed to know where we're going, and just like our omnipotent, omniscient GPSs that know where every street is in every place, everywhere in the world. So the intelligence is supposed to get its understanding from what? From the Vedas. And when the intelligence is properly trained up by Vedic knowledge, then the intelligence knows where to direct the senses and what to direct them away from as well. And it takes practice, and usually nobody gets it right. We make some progress, we make some mistakes, and because we make mistakes, we're sometimes dragged in the wrong direction. But if we continue to chant, and we continue to understand what the proper direction is, we train our intelligence, then eventually our mind will become our friend rather than our enemy. Otherwise, an uncontrolled mind is the worst enemy. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in 7th canto, 6th chapter, 5th verse, we have Jarhi asuram bhava mamam tvamatmana na shanti, what is it? Jahi asuram bhava mamam tvamatmana sama mano datsvana shanti vidvisa rite jitad atmana utpatesti tat tadihi anantasya mahat samarhanam. So this is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to his father, Hiranyakashipu. Jarhi asuram bhava mamam tvamatmana sama mano datsva na shanti vidvrisa jite rite jitad atmana utpatesti tat tadihi anantasya mahat samarhanam. That, my dear father, make your mind equal to all people. Except for the uncontrolled mind, there is no enemy in this world. Therefore, one who tries to make his mind equal to everyone, such a person is situated in the right position to be able to appreciate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that doesn't mean necessarily that we consider everything good or that we associate with everybody. But we understand whether people are doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Some of them have made their mind their worst enemy, and so they're doing the wrong thing. And other people have made their mind the best friend, so they're doing the right thing. And even when people are doing the wrong thing, we can understand that they have been overtaken by the same mistake that most people make, that don't control the mind, so therefore they are unable to direct themselves in the world. And they make all kinds of bad mistakes, they abuse people, they make various serious blunders. So we don't take it serious against them, but at the same time, we understand what their problem is and how to avoid it ourselves by trying to make the mind equal. All right, so I've already said too much, but if any of you have questions, then we can answer the questions. If you anybody have any questions about any of that, the analogy of the chariot or the mind or the best friend or the importance of controlling the mind or the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Can you do me a favor and speak into this?
Oh, sure.
That way, it won't amplify you, but it will be heard properly over the YouTube or whatever I put it up on.
I love it. I love that analogy because being here in the barn, obviously.
Right.
Well, Krishna, gifted me this opportunity to be in this barn. The yoga studio here was a gift from God because I prayed to live in a stall when I was a little girl. Mm-hmm. And God took me quite literally, and he gave me a stall upstairs. But horses see on the side of their eyes, like sharks, so they don't see in front. So that analogy was so perfect because it's true. The mind controls, the senses and the awareness. And it's such a beautiful thing to... I love the other part where you said that to see each of our minds as equal, to see it all as Krishna consciousness, and to see one another through the lens of Krishna, and that's truth. Mm-hmm. And we're all doing the best we can to walk each other home. I really love that analogy. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it occurred to me that it might be appropriate here.
Very. We love the horse puns here.
So That's all that we're trying to do, you know. And so when we're chanting, it's not so absolutely necessary that it's musically perfect or that it's, you know, the most amazing anything. What we're really trying to do is capture the mind by doing something other than focusing on it, which is really to hear the sound vibration of Krishna's name. So that's the real thing that we're shooting for. That's how we're imagining to make progress, is through that process of controlling the mind. So spiritual life is not difficult to grasp. It's difficult to do, but it's not difficult to grasp. So that's the process. And we should just try our best to move forward. Sometimes we'll make a lot of progress. Sometimes we may actually regress or have some setback. Or we may feel like we're not making any progress at all. But in any case, we should still keep going forward, because that's the only thing. And in the long run, we begin to see that our life has really not just changed a little bit, but it's changed substantially. So spiritual life gradually purifies us, and we begin to see that we are a different person. Not only do we understand what's happening, not only to ourselves, but what's happening in other people's lives. Not only do we understand it, but we find in a very important way that we begin to lose our taste for things which are not actually good for us, which most people think are the important ways to enjoy in this world. However, if you engage in spiritual life, you're, not only does your consciousness change, but your desire patterns change as well. And therefore, it's easier to direct the senses in the right direction. Otherwise, we're constantly fighting them. And there's some people who really have wild horses, you know, as far as their senses go, you know. So that's really, really unfortunate. But even that can be controlled if someone takes to spiritual life in a very consistent and in a very focused way. Okay. So where are we at here? We started at 6, now we're at 8:30, so